Picture a sick elephant, old, slow, sides heaving. The herd has stopped moving. They're standing around her in a loose circle and they're not eating, they're not playing. They're just there, touching her with their trunks, waiting. And the question that should be sitting in the back of your mind is this: does she know? Does she understand what's coming? Or is that just us projecting our own dread onto an animal that feels nothing at all? That question, whether wild animals understand their own death, sounds simple. It is not. It's one of the deepest, strangest rabbit holes in all of biology. And by the end of this video, I promise you'll never look at a dying animal the same way again. Let's go. First, let's establish something because it matters. For most of scientific history, the answer to this question was an automatic, confident no. Animals were biological machines. They reacted to pain, sure, but understanding death, anticipating it, that was a human thing, a soul thing. To suggest otherwise was embarrassing. And then, like always, the research started rolling in, and the picture got a lot weirder. Let's start with the most famous case: elephants. Elephants do something with their dead that is almost impossible to explain away. When a herd encounters the body of another elephant, even just bleached bones in the dirt, they stop. They go quiet. They reach out with their trunks and touch the bones, especially the skull and the tusks, turning them over, running the tips of their trunks along the surfaces like they're reading something. They'll stand there for an hour. Some return to the same remains year after year. They do not do this for the bones of any other species. A buffalo skeleton gets nothing. An elephant skeleton stops the whole family cold. Researchers have a careful, deflated name for this. They call it increased interest in conspecific remains, which is the most scientist way imaginable of saying these animals appear to grieve. But grieving the dead and knowing about your own death, those are two very different things. Hold on to that. We'll come back to it. Now, let's talk about something you've probably seen without knowing what it was. The way many animals vanish when the end is near. There's an old belief that elephants march to secret graveyards to die. That part's a myth, but the behavior underneath it is real. Across a huge range of species, elephants, cats, certain birds, sick and dying animals frequently withdraw. They leave the group. They go still. They find somewhere quiet and tucked away, and they stop. For a long time, the explanation was purely mechanical, and honestly, it's a good one. A sick animal is a slow animal. A slow animal near the herd attracts predators that endanger everyone. So withdrawal is just energy conservation plus instinct. No awareness required. That's a legitimate explanation. It probably accounts for a lot of cases. But here's where it gets complicated. Let's bring in the skeptic, because they deserve respect. The skeptic says you are seeing what you want to see. The elephant touching bones is just investigating a strange object. The animal that wandered off is just sick and seeking shelter. None of this requires a concept of death. You are a sentimental ape pasting your fear of mortality onto creatures that are simply running ancient subroutines. And you know what? On any single case, the skeptic might be right. That's the honest part nobody likes. We cannot open an animal's mind and read it, but here's the problem with the skeptic's tidy explanation. It keeps running into things it can't quite cover. Take the chimpanzees. Researchers documented a group in a sanctuary as one of their members. An older female named Pansy died slowly of natural causes. In her final hours, the others changed completely. They went quiet. They groomed her constantly. They tested her for signs of life by lifting her limbs and watching them fall. After she died, her daughter stayed by the body the entire night. And for days afterward, the group was subdued, avoiding the spot where she had died entirely. That is not investigating a strange object. That is a response to a specific individual, before and after the moment of death, that tracks the transition from alive to not alive. The question sharpens. Does an animal understand that it, personally, is going to die? Is there a creature out there, right now, that knows its own clock is running out? And this is where we have to be brutally honest about the limits of what we can know. Here's the core problem. To know you will die, you arguably need two things. You need a sense of yourself as a continuous individual moving through time, a me that exists tomorrow, and you need the concept that this me can stop existing. That's a heavy cognitive stack. We're not even certain when human children fully assemble it. Most kids don't grasp that death is permanent and universal until somewhere around age 7. So asking whether a crow has it is genuinely hard. But, and this is the fascinating part, we now have strong evidence that the first ingredient, the sense of a continuous self, exists in more animals than we ever believed. Great apes recognize themselves in mirrors. So do dolphins, elephants, and at least one bird, the magpie. Some animals plan for the future, storing food not for now, but for a winter they have never personally experienced. A creature that prepares for a tomorrow it can imagine is a creature with at least the raw material for understanding that tomorrows run out. Now, zoom all the way out, because there's an evolutionary puzzle here that ties it together. Why would knowing about your own death even evolve? On the surface, it sounds useless or worse. An animal paralyzed by dread of its own mortality isn't going to outcompete one that just lives. Evolution doesn't care if you're at peace. It cares if you reproduce. But here's the thing. The machinery that might produce a sense of mortality isn't some special death-detecting organ. It's a side effect. It's the same powerful social intelligence that lets a wolf or an elephant or a chimp model other minds, remember the dead, plan for the future, and understand cause and effect. You build a brain smart enough to grieve your mother and plan for next winter. And somewhere in that same machinery may sit the quiet, unwanted capacity to understand that you too will one day stop. In other words, the awareness of death might not be a feature. It might be the price of admission for being smart enough to love and plan at all. Now for the part the feel-good videos skip. The limit, the dark. Because for every elephant standing vigil, there are animals that show absolutely nothing. A fish, by everything we can measure, has no concept of its own ending. Most insects, nothing. Even among the smart species, the response is wildly inconsistent. Some chimps grieve for days. Others walk past a body without a glance. We do not fully understand why. And there's a hard, uncomfortable category we have to name. Many animals, in their final moments, aren't experiencing serene understanding at all. They're in raw panic, flooded with stress hormones, running pure survival instinct, fighting to live right up until the body quits. That isn't acceptance. That's terror with no concept attached. And it would be a lie to pretend every animal death is the peaceful, knowing scene we want it to be. So where does that leave us? Honestly, somewhere in the middle, and the middle is more interesting than either extreme. The evidence does not support the old idea that animals are blank machines stumbling blindly into death, but it also doesn't let us claim a deer lies down in the grass, making peace with the universe. What it suggests is a spectrum. At one end, creatures with no concept of death at all. In the vast middle, animals that clearly register death in others, that grieve, that change. And at the far end, the great apes, the elephants, the dolphins, a small handful of species sitting right at the edge of something we recognize. Maybe not our crisp, clock-watching knowledge of the end, but not nothing. A shadow of it. A sense. So here's what this means for you. The next time you hear about an elephant herd going silent around their fallen, or a sick cat slipping away to a quiet corner of the house, resist both easy stories. It isn't simply a soulful animal making peace. And it isn't simply meat running a program. It's something in between, something we are only beginning to find the words for, in minds that are not human and were never built to be read by us. That dying elephant in the circle, surrounded by trunks reaching out to touch her, we still can't say for certain what she knows, but the herd around her knows something. They feel the difference between her being here and being gone, and they stand in it together, in the quiet, for as long as it takes. None of that is nothing.